just going to...
Okay, it's on.
Hey, this is Bob. I love everybody. This is Melissa. That's what the Lord has called her to me. So, and this is Andrew, and the Lord has called him Bob's servant. These are the Waylands, and we're just going to jump in. Kevin Mangold is sitting over here. And what we're really going to do is review some divine history. Kevin and I and others, we believe that it applies to these guys. I even talked about these guys with Noel, and we didn't get into a lot, but I just remember Bob Jones, like when he saw me, said hardly in the heart. He knew my name, and it wasn't as much revelation as it was conversation that led to revelation. Didn't make it any less powerful because people know their name, people know their phone number. So I like that for confirmation, but I believe there's a divine wisdom and a prophetic that's going to another level where it's not just a bless, but it's a build. So just as I was remembering, we both know Mary Crowley, and Mary had asked me to come on and share what I had felt for 2021. And so I was sharing about the sweet stick, and there was, so I don't remember. I'm asking Andrew to help remind me if he can, because I just know, and I'm going to share this right up front. My history has been started in the 6th grade. I won't make this long, but as a Catholic boy and went to Catholic school, and my dad was the best lover I've ever met. He just loved to love. He was an inner city principal, and so he had a loving mind, and so he taught us how to use our minds. And when we got into the charismatic world, it was throw your mind out. I understand that, but he taught us how to ask quantitative research questions of God, and that would lead to qualitative answers. And by that, he'd say, son, just ask God what kind of man does he want you to be in 20 years. Ask him, when I started to get in trouble. And so he was very kind about it. But in the 6th grade, I had a teacher, beautiful silver-haired lady, and she came to me and she said, those 2 girls, do you know their names? And they'd been in class with me from the 1st grade, and I didn't know their names. And they're all 35 of the same group, and she started to tear up. I never had a teacher do that. She said, that's the deal, nobody knows their name. They're just ciphers. There's nothing to nobody's. And she said, so I'm going to ask you a favor. Will you say hello to them? And I like sports, and so she asked me on a Friday, and I went home, and I felt for the girls, but I didn't know what she was asking me to give up, and so, but I decided over the weekend, a teacher asked me, so I went during recess, and I just tried to talk to them, but they were so stunted in their communication, nobody had approached them. It was really sad, hit me as a 6th grader, and one was real tall, and society wouldn't call it pretty. And then the other was real short and, good size. And again, society wouldn't call it pretty. And so that went on the next 3 days where I would try to talk to them all recess, and then I'd report to the teacher that they didn't say anything. They never would answer me and try and get away from me, really. And so, my school is half a mile from my house, less, and so I walk home, and I remember walking home, and I said, God help me. I just started to feel really sad for them, and I thought what it would be like to not have anybody know yet. So I said, God, tell me what they like to do. Tell me what's their gift mix. I wouldn't have asked it that way then. But so the next day I came to talk to him. I hadn't gotten an answer from God, but but I had an intuition just as I said, what do you like to do? And I said to the one who was shorter, I said, you like to write? And she said, oh, I love to write. I love to write short stories and poems for my family and others. And it was just magnificent. I mean, she just, and they felt the compassion and the level of wisdom. And then I turned to the gal that was the tall one, and I said, you like to speak. You like oratoric epics to come off, flowing off your lips. No, I didn't. But I said, you, and she said, oh, I love to read to my family. And I wrote, she had a radio voice, it was beautiful. So, and I never heard her voice that I could remember. And so I went to the teacher and I said, how about we have the one write a story and the other read it in front of the class? And a short story. And she said, oh man, she said, what if they get rejected? And I said, they don't have much farther to fall. Mm-hmm. So, but we were both nervous, and that day that it came where she got up to read it. And I remember the story till today. It was called The Antidote for All Man's Problems Was Love, and it's a profound story. It would speak to our society now, because it was a town that had been cruel to one another, and this was a person they had especially been cruel to. Came back, poisoned all the punch, everybody drank of it, called him into the gymnasium and told him, you know, you got 48 hours to find love, basically, and do good stuff for others. And so they came back and they had completely changed. I mean, it was magnificent the way the first one came in. Said, they uncorked these stories and just loving each other. So at the end, the person who has the vial antidote says, I still only have enough antidote for 12, and had been real moved and said it felt horrible, said, I gotta let you decide. And one by one, they all got up and walked out. And that was a story this girl writes. And I saw sixth graders going from laughing, belly laughing, to crying, and they went from the forgotten ones to the famous, you know.
Wow.
They became the heart, the hits, and then they did it every few weeks, and it just got better. And I ran home after that. I did hit the ground and said, God, if I could do that with my life, you know, lift a heart. And so what I really look for now, and I started developing even as not, I didn't know I was an unbeliever, I just was a Catholic boy, but I definitely wasn't following. But I meet people and I ask them questions. How much do you love them? How much do you appreciate them? Especially people that gave me a hard time, you know, on a wrestling team or something, because I knew I had to live with them. But also I wanted to love. And so it's developed so much through the years that it seems natural to get specific answers to specific questions. But he really confronted me at one point because I was burnt into the doom and gloom reality. Gary Cruzy, you don't know him, or Art Katz, but
I know Art. Didn't know him personally.
They were my mentors. Gary Cruzy was kind of Art's mentor, and Ketchup was Cardinal to him, you know. So the short of it is that I was asking the wrong questions, and that took a while for the Lord to confront me and say, ask questions of hope. I never present a challenge without a solution in love. And I'm bringing forth the greatest kind of love on the earth in this hour. It's 1 Corinthians 13:7. It's a progressive of love that hopes all things. It's the greatest kind of love. Because it never gets disappointed. It never puts people in the disappointment room or the offense room. So the way I remember with Andrew is that, Andrew, I'll just say that he spoke to me and said with Melissa that these are ones that he was very proud of you. That he just said these are ones that they're qualified because they won't get offended. That they choose love and they just won't allow their pain to become greater than their love. And they'll look for them not to become victims, but even as opportunities to love any time that you've been misunderstood. You know, because you never intentionally want to hurt anyone, but you know, but you would ask questions it's not about who's in the right or wrong room. It's about how can we better love. So that's why I remember it, and I just want to submit to you guys that we're just going to go into some divine history, but I want to let Andrew, I want to submit to this. So the way that I hear is I'll hear on a macro level ask for a city or a nation, and then I'll ask for, I have 5 questions. What's on your heart, God? And then I say, and I felt like he said, cities and nations, Ezekiel 36:23, vindicate the greatness of my holy name throughout the nations. He said that he would be loved and his identity would be understood, that there was a war over compassion and a war over the nature of God, and that there were many forgotten faces of him. And primary one was the God of hope. And he said, so I want to bring forth 50 million hope reformers. So then I'll ask him the second question, how are you going to do that? And he said, through a hope reformation. And so there was a first reformation, Martin Luther, and that answered the question how we're saved. But it didn't answer the question how we live. We live in misery according to the way that's been defined to us. We're afraid of an earth that's already afraid. And so he visited me about a hope reformation, because love secures a heart, but hope advances a heart. So you can't build and have fruit that remains if you don't have hope. And so a hope reformation is going to be as big as the first reformation. Now there's been a number of them, but that first one that said to the little Catholic boy, you're saved by grace. Wow, that brings me in the first chamber door of his love. But the second chamber is, he says now in Song of Solomon 2, and just there's many parables to this, or pictures of this, that now go out to the city. And he's the King of Glory, come to the city, that he's God of all life, not just God of redemption or revival. And so how's he doing it? That's the next question I ask him. Through a hope reformation, I need to find, really, there's a deep journey of what the revelation of what hope's about, the God of hope, and how his face has been buried, that face of him for 6,000 years. And then I say, well, who are you going to do it through? And one thing that Kevin and I experienced was Kevin was going to Cuba, and the first time he went and he came back, and Kevin's become Kevin's a friend of the king, literally a king, our God, and the kings of Cuba, Queens, and so I shared with him probably 70, 80 names of people that
Maybe not quite that many, but yeah, certainly 25 or something like that.
Yeah,
That
you're
might
right.
be key.
Because the rest of them are people from here. I saw 70, 80 in this revelation that were hope reformers, and they had wisdom, that they would help start a second Jesus movement with wisdom, and they had the wisdom to believe who he was and believe what he said about the 27 temporal hopes that we had put into the millennium that were for today.
Wow.
So Kevin has met all 25 of those.
Maybe with the exception of one, but yeah.
So, and we knew it was a seed that would take a while to come to fruition, so we went there a number of times and shared on the celebration of Cuba and the distinctives of that. But my life journey has been to look for those hope reformers, and then primarily my responsibility, might be a first grade teacher, is to help them get equipped in 3 ways. There's others that are to help as well. You know, that sometimes we think we need to do it all, but one was to help with the new encounter pathway. I had a visit about the prayer movement. And the prayer building was large, but it was tilted. It needed more hope in it, in the prayers. And then so I was to help, and Kevin tell you, just my theme is adoration, and I've spent my life, as a wrestler, I give 6 hours a day to sport. I give that time to first 9 years to him in devotion, just adoring different faces of him. But second thing, so I'm going to help people put their hands into his hands. And now it's really an ascension prayer where they can see from a 50 million mile view and see the God of the fifth scene, which I'll share with you in a minute. Where the God of evil is nothing compared to the greatness of who he is in reality. But second thing was the yellow house journey. And everybody's life is a journey. And I believe everybody's life goes through these similar rooms at a similar pace. And it's the development of every biblical brother or sister I've looked at, they're going through those stages progressively. And it's the same. Every room to our house is an invitation to intimacy and has a theme. So the Yellow House journey is the training of kings and queens. Bill Johnson was in England, I say, find a school named Eton, and he found it, and it was a school where they trained kings and queens, you know, prime ministers, and so there was some royal ways. Now that I've got consistently, I'd go to 10 to 12 nations every year and talk to their parliaments, and ran out of gas, but that was mainly it. I wouldn't call it the allegory of the Yellow House because they want concrete language, but so you gotta make it knowledge acceptable. So that's the second thing, and then the third thing is and I just, well, no, wait, I want to give you an overview. I'll break this down a little more. The third thing is a whole different hearing model, new type of prophetic. I had the central commander come to me during the Iraqi War, and it was the Lord, and he, just talked to me about, and there was a number of us as reporters. Central commander during the war comes in and tells the troops how the war is going. He talked about the war over compassion, but also over hearing. And he was very strong about things he didn't like, and it wasn't to correct anybody, it was an invitation to hear him in a way that we should expect to hear him for 100 years. We should expect him, like when I was 12, I heard him from 12 to 18, your life would be like this, 18 to 30, 30 to 50, and it's just been dead on with the majors.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want us, it's more faith to believe that and trust that and head that way versus to be the windsurfer, where the prophecies are always changing. And so, so I might talk about what that looks like. But when I met you guys, I'd rather tell you historically. What I do is I'll tell a story.
Yeah.
And it'll be out of either an encounter with him or a real life story. And then I say, like Nathan did today, that this is a woman. And in a good way. I won't tell you like Nathan did today, but So let's just stop it there and call that introduction to a historic journey that we're about to be harking on.